Hello and welcome back to the One Radio Gamescast. As always, I'm your host Ryan. Today I'm joined by my lovely duo of co-hosts, Alex
Hello, game hers, game he's, and game thems.
and Wyatt.
Hi.
I love the just slightly disconcerted laugh. It's like you don't know that I'm
before.
As it should be.
I've never heard that before. That was
Of course not.
That threw me off.
Totally original.
Not gonna lie.
Alright. This is episode number 97. We're going to be talking about the big news this week, which is Sony buying Bungie, as well as some stuff we've been playing and a few other things that have happened in the game landscape over the past 2 weeks, because we did not do news last week. To be honest, there wasn't really any, so we didn't miss a whole lot. But we're going to go ahead and get the big boy out of the way. Sony, this past week, has acquired Bungie for $3.6 billion. Now, that's a big number, right? That does not include the multi-billion-dollar package they're giving to incentive package that they are spreading across the company for employees to stay at Bungie. This is a thing they're doing as well. And the salaries of everyone they are now having to fund. So, this is a big acquisition. Very, very big acquisition.
Right.
This is about half as much as the Bethesda acquisition from back when. So, large numbers of money being thrown about.
And it's an interesting acquisition as well. I think in terms of PlayStation's overall portfolio, because they don't have a lot of games like this. They don't have a lot of first-person shooter.
Really, anything that isn't like a third-person action game,
which
right?
is exactly one of the most likely reasons why they did that. Along with it's strange to think about at first, but we're hopefully going to dig into the possible whys.
Right, and it is important to note too that this is a deal that's been in the works for 6 months, something like that. So this wasn't an immediate response to the Activision acquisition, because this has been going on for quite a while.
Deals like that, while it may appear that way, can not be done on a hair trigger.
This Activision, the Activision Blizzard deal isn't even going to be done for close to a full year. This deal is probably fairly similar in the amount of time it's taken to get done. So, yeah, very long time spans we're working with here. This is not a reaction to anything that Microsoft did.
That would be first of all, that wouldn't even be possible because the amount of logistics that you'd have to do before you can even announce something like that. But also, even if you were able to pull it off, that would just be foolish and just a bad idea.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting purchase because Sony has said a few things in the past that lead into reasons why this is possibly, why they would look after Bungie specifically. And I think there's some really good points made by a lot of other games journalists, because this news happened on Mondays, and we record our podcast on Sundays, so we are on the end of the news cycle for this one. So
the
hearing
001 curse.
Look, it happens to everyone at different times. We got the drops on the Activision Blizzard deal real quick. So with this, I think we're in this position of having heard reactions from everyone else. We're in a more measured state of, okay, there are a lot of benefits and possible drawbacks going down the line of this acquisition. I think the big question mark here is Bungie going to be worth $3.6 billion, plus the incentive packages, plus the salaries? I don't know. Destiny is hugely successful, so probably is the answer. But
it is, but there's two things to keep in mind with Destiny. Running a looter shooter behind the scenes is incredibly expensive.
Yeah, it's all hands on deck. It's like an MMO. Yeah. It's a lot of...
Especially for one that's as big as this. But the other thing, too, is that they have really high-quality content, too, in terms of just production value. So that's also just adds on to the cost significantly, because it's such higher production value than in a lot of other looter shooters, and there's a lot of polish that goes into it as well.
It could which is a little strange thing is that maybe the reveal that Bungie is working on a second yet to be named IP came along probably along the lines of when they realized the deal was, well, actually no, because
that IP has been rumored for about 6 months now, so I doubt it would be the same.
Okay. But
It
I
could
think
be, though.
definitely
Yeah.
PlayStation can absolutely aid in that endeavor with um, expanded hiring process. Just
Yeah.
better avenues to go through for that.
Well, Sony said they're
As
actively
the
looking to expand into the live service market because Sony right now
yeah.
has no properties that are live service. Nothing that even really fits in the market space. Whereas Xbox already has, like, you have Halo Infinite that just launched. Forza, as odd as it sounds, is kind of modeled after live services. It's a lot more player friendly in terms of like microtransactions. It's more you buy like the expansion pass with expansion content, but the structure of like the seasons and everything is very akin to a live service. So I think
Even
Xbox has got a
Nintendo
lot of
has
stuff that fits.
even Nintendo, I'd argue. Like I'm not super familiar with Animal
Tetris
Crossing, but from the
99.
way Tetris 99, but from the way it seems, I feel like Animal Crossing it kind of fits into that as well. It seems like they have a lot of like
Oddly enough, yeah.
uh,
Well,
seasonal stuff that comes out, that sort of thing.
I think there's also a thing with Sony, as fantastic as the majority of their exclusives are, you can't solely do exclusives forever. I think
Especially if they're all in
their
the same like
acquisition,
two genres.
their
I mean,
acquisition of Bungie, with this, and all the talks in the FAQ pages and things like that of everyone at Bungie is saying we're staying multi-platform, things like that. I think it's another sort of
Yeah, that's a very good
playing
point.
the long game, seeing how it goes for
There
Sony.
has been a lot of confirmations that from Bungie specifically that even past Destiny, their other projects are going to be multi-platform, and that they are still self-publishing, or that they still have the option to self-publish. Not that they didn't say they're going to always self-publish, but they said that we still have self-publishing as an option for our future properties. So
It
expect multi-platform releases.
it sounds like a very good sort of sugar daddy deal between between Sony and Bungie. With you can maybe show us a little bit of your experience with that live service uh, stuff, and we
Yeah.
get the benefit of investing in a
I
multi-platform
do wonder if
game.
some of this acquisition is getting not necessarily training from Bungie, but getting some of the higher ups who are in charge of like Bungie's schemes to keep players around.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, if that's going to be something that they're
Delicate.
going to start training other studios in, because we know there's a couple of announced live service projects coming out at some point. We don't have release dates, but we know Factions for Last of Us 2 is happening at some point. We
That's
know
right.
that Sony has said they have 5 to 10 live service games they want to launch in the next like 10 to 15 years. So I'm curious to
Wow.
see where we end up. And a lot of those are in different genres and whatnot, but it's a big number, especially because live service games, like, there's a limited market share because they are so demanding of your time and attention that you cannot play more than one at a time, right? Like,
Yeah,
Right.
it's coming dangerously close to making a game feel more like a job.
yeah, I think
But
that's a good point.
if you can
And
tread that line correctly, then it's a
Rewarding
good bet.
genre.
Yeah.
and to that too, if they're going to be releasing so many of those games that require such a commitment, it comes down to like, well, are you going to have a wide variety of different types of live
Yes.
service games? Because that's the big thing. It's like,
Primarily
okay, you can
not just
release
shooters, right? Because that's the big thing right now. Is there's
right.
not anything
So
aside from shooters.
right. So like, if you're going to have a ton of live service games, that's fine. But if they're all going to be like first or third person looter shooters or looter slashers or whatever, then
What
I
would
don't think I think people are going to get bored of that kind of those kind of releases really quickly because it's very similar to one another.
what would a live service game that wasn't a shooter look like?
I think you can do it. I think Godfall tried to a degree, and just
Tried is a good way of putting it.
well, actually, I think a better way of phrasing that is Godfall looked like it should have tried, but they didn't. Right? Like they did all the things where they were like, "Oh, it's not a live service game," but the entire game screams this should be a live service. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Hmm.
and Brett's not here, but constantly, Brett and I talk about the one genre that really fits well with live service as a concept: sports and wrestling games.
Yeah.
Sports and wrestling, you can
Oh, sure.
because that way, instead of doing the
FIFA would-
yearly releases that require so much effort from the studio, just do yearly updates for like 3 years, 4 years at a time, and then release your new big expansion or big new game every couple of like 5 years. That way, you have this large sustainable cycle of games to be made, and I think that's a genre that could certainly see that happen.
I think FIFA tricks people into giving them their money too much to know how to be able to change.
I mean, FIFA might be changing anyway. Don't think we still know the end state of whether or not EA is going to use FIFA as a name anymore.
Oh.
We'll see. Yeah, I think there's a lot of genres that could work. Specifically, anything that has like any real world things that play into it. So like Defiance, right? Was that old sci-fi shooter MMO? That game
Ryan
was
and I
super
keep desperately trying to bring up constantly.
because it was very interesting. I'm not going to say it's a good game, but
I remember this.
it could have worked really well.
It's interesting.
The TV show was pretty good, to be honest. Like the game, maybe not. But
well, and also, again, when they say live service game, this could mean something like Destiny, that's very much like a live service, looter shooter thing, or it could be something like what we're going to talk about probably a little bit later, Dying Light, which I would argue is very much a live service game. It's just a single player open world game.
Live service in a different context.
That's what I'm saying. So like, if that's how they want to play things, is more like, okay, we're going to be a single player game first, but have live service elements to keep players coming back to that single player experience, then I think that's probably the better way to go about it, instead of like
right now live
Destiny
service
a bunch of times.
Whenever you say live service, people tend to think multiplayer, when we just haven't really seen what a live service single player game would look like. So I'm curious.
We've seen a little bit of it like Dying Light, but I feel like they could have gone further with it if they really wanted to.
Yeah,
I think the balance that they cut with the first one is quite good, but they could go further with it if they wanted to in the future with this one, with 2.
I guess the main thing I think of when I hear of live service is seasonal things, or season things, and battle passes or things like that. Does Dying Light have the battle pass or a season attached to it?
No, it usually has like
seasonal events, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So like,
it has like a Halloween event.
Things. Okay.
Yeah, it has like a Halloween event and stuff like that.
That I could easily picture for single player games being quote unquote.
There's the whatever it's called, that's like a medieval fantasy themed thing that you access through the arcade machine.
Oh yeah, they did the Hell Raid DLCs.
Hell Raid, that's what it's called, which is really, really cool.
They released a lot of small DLC packs that have additional content, and then tons of just general support and updates.
Alternate costumes and looks for Crane and stuff like that.
Yeah. Lots of interesting stuff there. So I'm very curious. I think we're going to have a lot more information about this in the months to come, because this feels like a deal that is more able to see what this is going to look like than the Activision Blizzard deal, just because Activision Blizzard has so much going on, right? Like, we are not going to know what that end result is for a year at least. But with Bungie, I think we'll start to see, once Witch Queen has launched and everything, we'll start to see the effects of that. Because they stated that there's not going to be any timed exclusives in Destiny until 2024. So they didn't say ever, but they said until the 2024 expansion launches, there's not going to be timed exclusives or any like content locked to a specific platform. So,
which, I mean, that is
leaves open the thing of after 2024 there will be, but
we could be seeing the PlayStation exclusive strikes or exotics or things like that, where they used to have them in D1, which was I think what was.
I mean, nobody liked that, right? Like nobody thought that was a good idea. Yeah.
It was always
they were really cool.
Because it was always a matter of like, oh, if they do like, like platform exclusive content, like it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, because there's no way that they made this big of a purchase and they're not going to capitalize on it with exclusive content. There's no way.
So I just feel like that's the big question mark here. What is Sony getting out of this right now? Because currently it looks like nothing, like actually nothing. So something is going to be happening on the back end at some point. It may not be Destiny related at all, but go ahead, Alex.
Well, this is what I was talking about earlier with the, it doesn't have to be technically physical things or money. It can be the what I was talking about earlier, joking with the sugar daddy experience being okay, seeing the experience that they have and getting people familiar with how Destiny does live service things, so that they're able to transfer that information to how,
and maybe just having an experienced studio that does a genre that isn't third person action, right? Like But Sony definitely has that problem right now. Of I love third-person action games, so I'm not complaining. But
Yeah.
they definitely have a lack of other genres, and I think if you want to play first-person shooters, you're probably not leaning towards Sony platforms unless you're already playing like Call of Duty on them. You don't have a lot of other options. So,
And
yeah.
it could be the sort of thing too where they hire on, Bungie and Bungie keeps Destiny running, but they could place a lot of like they could have Bungie be like, okay, Bungie, you have a lot of experience with live servers. We're gonna have you be in charge of that like division of our portfolio. And so
Yeah.
like going forward, Bungie leadership could have a lot to say with not just Destiny, but with
You'd think the Bungie leadership would get a place inside Sony decision making, or yeah, Sony
I
decision.
think so.
Yeah,
I think
if
it's
you paid this much
possible.
money, I think that means they want the people in this company there and want to use their expertise. So,
And especially given their interest in live service, it makes sense to get people who know what they're doing and kind of have them, run things in that respect.
like,
And
we
that
all
could
have
be
our individual gripes with Destiny, but I think all of us agree that Destiny's gunplay and like general gameplay is some of the best in the biz, right? Like, even if
Yeah.
I don't think Brett tends to agree that it's the best shooter, but I think, at least in my opinion, I don't know about you, Wyatt, outside of like Halo Infinite.
The way that it feels in the moment is absolutely
Oh yeah,
one of, if not
moment to
the most
moment.
satisfying shooter game that I've played.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what keeps people around. I think the thing that Destiny probably knows but doesn't need to act on because they're generally good at keeping up with new content and whatnot is, I think if you didn't get any new content for Destiny 2 for a year, people would still be playing it because the gameplay is so good.
We have had a 6-month season. 4 of those months have essentially been essentially no new content. We did get the 30th anniversary pack, which took things up a bit.
Yep. So I do
yeah.
want to move this discussion to there's a couple other things with Destiny that are happening that lead me to believe there could be some kind of spin-off or something in the works, because Destiny, or not Destiny, but Bungie hired one of Riot's animation directors for a Destiny transmedia experience.
Yes,
It's Derek Sy, who has a lot of experience in the animation industry. So we don't know anything about what this could mean, except for the fact that they've stated Destiny is working with a transmedia experience here. So I'm wondering if maybe they're going to be partnering with Sony's film division. Because Sony, yeah. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh no, I was just it's like, yeah, you absolutely. Sony is multimedia. They
did the recent Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Their animation studios do tons of great films.
There's an Uncharted movie coming out very, very soon.
So I do wonder if that is possibly, if they want to spin off Destiny into like a League of Legends style multi-game thing, media conglomerate. I think Sony is a good pick for a studio to do that, because Sony's got so many hands in different industries that if Bungie is looking to expand Destiny as an IP, this is probably beneficial for them, and Sony gets obviously some of the money coming from that. So I think there's a lot of that, if that's where this leads, and it's less to do with the video game and more to do with maybe spin-off video games or a spin-off TV series or something. Because, man, I would... Look, Destiny's lore is nonsensical if you don't read outside of the game, right? But
delivered in not the best way, but my god, is it engaging.
How cool would it be to get like a film that is an animated Destiny film or something that goes into some crazy side story? I would love that.
I would pay good money to see a movie on the Books of Sorrow.
Dude, and just imagine there's so much potential with Destiny's background, because it has that very the background is never too specific, so you have a lot of leeway with how you do things.
They could do a Shin Malfur and Dredgen Yor show.
I have no idea what those words mean. I'm down to watch it if it comes out.
Listen, you sound excited, so that's great.
Essentially, Shin Malfur, biggest space cowboy gunslinger, hunting.
I would love that.
Evil knight or titan who has a fun relationship with a hive witch.
So much potential. So I do want to ask you, Alex, how long do you think Destiny 2 as an entity stays around before they go? Not like Destiny as a franchise dies, but until like Bungie comes up with the next big Destiny project that is like Destiny 3 or... Because I don't think they use Destiny 2 as the platform forever, because it's clear that Destiny 2 has a lot of, like... The fact that they've had to do the sunsetting and vaulting,
yeah.
it looks like there's a lot of engine limitations with Destiny 2.
Yeah, I do absolutely believe it could be reorganized better, and I hope that they... I don't really have a horse in the race too much in the future of it. Um, if they do end up doing a Destiny 3 or really heavily leaning into the a newer IP, it would be post 2024.
Yeah, because they have
With
expansions planned till then.
Yeah, with this being currently we're in the on the 22nd of this month, the second yearly expansion for the second trilogy comes out, and after, so it's, we have Witch Queen, and then after that it's going to be Lightfall, and they have stated that that is the end of the Light and Dark saga, but they haven't said that it's the end of Destiny, which it's confusing wording to...
That sounds like Final
put it
Fantasy
that way.
Endwalker wording to me, to where everyone, like, for a brief period of time thought Endwalker was going to be the last expansion. So, like, oh, this is the final chapter in the saga, and like, no, this is just, we're going to start a new story arc after this.
The writers could very well already have 3 to 4 more years planned out, but it
Yeah.
definitely feels from a consumer point of view, where would they go with the story after that? Could it be engaging enough to continue playing?
I mean, I think that's always, historically, when you look at media that has gotten to that point of where we're going to go with the story after that, time skip. Throw in a time skip, and we go down, and that is the key. I think that is the moment you seize to make your new entry. Because I do think, if Destiny wants to be this live service, because Destiny 2, when it originally launched, wasn't this, right? Like, this is not the end state that I think they had in mind when Destiny 2 was in pre-planning.
Right, that was what it was still with Activision, I believe, and they had
Yes.
they had Destiny 2 Vanilla, and then they had the 2 just expansions that were expansions and not seasons. That was Curse of Osiris, which was which a lot of people have strong opinions on, and Warmind, I believe. And then I wasn't around for that. I wasn't around until midway through Destiny year 3 after Shadowkeep came out, so I wasn't privy to sort of how the shift from expansion to seasonal content went.
So that actually, I mostly played Destiny during the vanilla period. So I think vanilla Destiny played very much like what I would imagine a Halo live service game to be like. Or not live service, but Halo, like, somewhat multiplayer Halo game, like pseudo MMO Halo game, where the main focus was on, like, the content that you would get through in the sub stories and whatnot, and then you had, like, the strikes that would happen and the occasional raid that would come around. But it was more of like a social platform, right? It was following that MMO design. So I wonder if at that point they had planned for an endpoint to Destiny 2, and for some reason plans changed, probably because of the success of the game. They were like, okay, we need to keep this around as a platform. Because, like, to me, I think Destiny 2 has a marketing and, like, branding problem. Because if you want new people to get into Destiny 2, right, you're already asking, okay, I can't really play the first game easily anymore on a lot of platforms.
Yeah.
I can't play the campaign of Destiny 2.
It's
so I'm getting dropped in.
Friendly.
And I think that is going to be something that Sony and Bungie are looking to tackle in the future, because that is, like, the biggest problem that Destiny has right now, right? Is
do you think that the first multimedia attempt could be a way to better shepherd possible new players into
I think that's
the
an
game
option
without having them feel like too much FOMO has gone by, including like the sunsetting of the campaign?
I think that's an option. I think what I would do if I were Sony is push for a released collection of Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 base. So not including the currently live elements, but a released, maybe probably not single player, still keep the group aspect, but I would rework some of the content to be doable solo and release, like, it as a 2 campaigns in a box thing, right? because I think that is print money. The content's already made, so
Oh, absolutely. Do you think that it would be going as far as remastering aspects of one?
no, I don't think they would
Okay,
remaster it.
because
Mostly because I think
I
one
think
is still holds up pretty well.
it would be. I think it would be a little bit too hard to go back and, let's say, implement mantling into D1, whereas
Yeah,
you weren't able to grab onto ledges in D1 until
I think I
D2.
see the furthest I could see them doing with something like that is treating it like a Mass Effect Legendary, where the character creation is carried over,
Yeah,
and your character, like, not actual progression, but your character itself is carried over. So
And the other thing about that too is that I mean they're not shy about bringing old content and old areas back, right? Like I had stopped playing Destiny around this time, but they did bring back the Cosmodrome from D1, right? I think
yes,
most of the
yeah.
entire area is there. So they're definitely not shy of bringing back old content. So if that's something that they wanted to do, they totally could. I mean, they even have the original opening from D1 now for for new players. And so
yeah.
I think resources are better spent implementing more of the, older content and stories and stuff into just the game in general rather than trying to do like a remaster or
Well, that's
remix of
what
the
we
first
were
game.
talking about. Well, I think you were away. Is
Right.
so
Right. Sorry.
mentioning that Destiny has a branding problem right now. Of you have this issue of it's called Destiny 2. I, as a new player, if I go in and start playing Destiny 2, forgetting all the experience I have with Destiny, I have no clue what's going on, right? And the game has no way for me to get myself up to speed in a way that isn't just like reading lore pages, right? It's the same problem that Final Fantasy 14 has if you skip something, right? Like,
Ooh,
exactly the same problem. So
they implemented. I don't think this is a real solution by far. It's kind of it's it's a little helpful as a catch up thing. They in the main director, where you see the list of all the planets that you can go to. They have a timeline where it goes, okay, this is a vanilla,
look,
and it's brief
Alex,
story summaries for
you
everything,
say
which is
timeline. All I want is for every game to have a timeline that just tells me what to do first,
oh
because
what to do. This
ESO
is
doesn't have that.
Yeah,
Nope.
the timeline's more like catching you up on things that you cannot do anymore
Oh,
with sunsetting, really. And then it has story summaries for each expansion, though, so that's somewhat helpful.
I mean, when I look at the content that has already been made and vaulted for Destiny, I still see like tons of potential for money there. If you just repackage that some way and get it out so that people can play it again in a way that it is not the current Destiny thing. So I think what they need to do is, like, at some point, either you can use Destiny 2 as the launchpad for this if you really want to, but I think it's a bad idea. I think what Destiny really needs is a clean cut off and start again. So I think the end of that Light and Dark saga is probably the point where they pull the trigger on that, because the best way that I think get new players into Destiny at this point is not to like try to catch them up with everything that has happened, but to put them on equal footing with old players, where the story that you're going into is new, with new characters and new stakes and whatnot. So I think you do that by creating like a Destiny thing that is not titled like Destiny 3 if they're going to keep doing this live service. Just title it like Destiny again or something. I know we all hate that, but to a new player, I think that makes the most sense. Is just like, after Destiny 2 runs its course, launch like Destiny, the actual MMO live service thing, where
Destiny Rebirth,
yeah,
maybe.
Destiny Reborn, something like that, where you actually are playing through the current content in a way that is friendly to both new players and old players, and I think that's like the best way to get people into that, because
Hmm.
the lack of the ability to play old content is so detrimental to those new players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder where they go. I'm rooting for them to find a solution to this, because I think Destiny's gunplay is still so good. And from what I've seen of the Shadowkeep Onwards class design, it's a lot better than when I was playing it back in vanilla. So I haven't gotten a chance to play it again yet, but at some point I'll probably hop back in.
With Witch Queen, you will have a chance to play with their first person melee weapon, which is going to be that
Oh yeah, I
glaive
saw
is
that.
looking very enticing.
Those look very cool. All right, moving on from the Destiny discussion, because I think we got a lot of mileage out of this, and we're going to end up talking about it again whenever the next big news drop about this happens. So let's move on. I want to have you guys take a guess right now. We play games on this show. All of us here are familiar with Unity.
Oh no!
Why would you say that name?
So, for those who don't know, Unity is a game development engine.
6 a.m. flashbacks with the boys, and we're just all collectively going.
So
crazy,
Unity has released
chairs around.
Unity has released their financial reports. I would like you two to take a guess at what their revenue for the last 3 months of 2021 ended up being. It's a 3-month period. How many millions of dollars did Unity make?
Now I'm trying to look back and I'm trying to remember like Unity license pricing. I'm trying to remember it in my head.
Yeah. God.
It's not tremendously expensive. I think the key point here is Unity is not a super expensive engine to use, even for larger companies.
Yeah, comparatively speaking, definitely.
35?
35 million in 3 months. Okay.
I was gonna say like somewhere between 15 and 20. I'm gonna go with 20 million.
All right. Well, you all are vastly underestimating the size of Unity. They made 315 million in those 3 months. Total revenue this year was 1.1 billion.
Jesus.
Yep. So it is an interesting state. I think a lot of that is from, a lot of people don't know, Unity has a lot of contracts outside of just game development, specifically for military use and for medical and research purposes, because a lot of people use, and automotive.
It is a incredibly versatile engine.
It's not just used for games. Same thing with Unreal, because Unreal is used for a lot of filmmaking stuff. That's what Unity tends to not do super well.
Which, perfect example, Unreal is what's used to make all the digital sets for the Star Wars TV shows. Perfect example.
Very cool.
It's also better with particles.
They are. That's true.
Yep. So I think it was interesting just to note that. And additionally, Unity also has a huge operating loss right now. So the loss for one quarter, let me see if I can see what quarter it was, but they did lose 144 million at one point over what
Certainly
they
not because
revenue.
I'm pirating it. No, not at all.
I mean, Unity is free, so you're not.
I'm pirating the free version of Unity, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
The version of the game,
tired.
Unity that costs no money.
Since I installed it.
Yeah, Unity is free for personal use and free for developing use as long as you don't make I think once you hit $100,000 in revenue, you have to start paying for Unity. But until you hit that, Unity is free.
Well, boy, I am going to be in the clear for a while.
Oh yeah. You got to hit some big numbers, and I don't even think it's cumulative. I think it's like one game has to make that much, so you got to hit some big numbers. We have some interesting sales data from the last 2 weeks from Pokemon Legends Arceus and Dying Light 2. Legends Arceus has just held off of Dying Light 2 taking the #1 spot. So it's interesting. Legends Arceus really doing some good sales, despite there being a 72% drop from the week before.
You know what? Ooh. Maybe Dying Light 2 could use a Bidoof in it.
A nice good old Bidoof.
I wouldn't complain.
Yep.
Is that a Pokemon?
Yeah, it's a Pokemon. It's one of the Pokemons in Legends Arceus.
Okay, thank you. I'm like, what are you talking about?
We also, this week, got confirmation from Rockstar in the form of a Twitter response that they are working on the next installment of Grand Theft Auto. We don't know if this is properly GTA 6, but it is some Grand Theft Auto thing. I think this tweet to me is many of you who've been asking about a new entry in Grand Theft Auto series. With every new project, our goal is to always significantly move beyond what we've previously delivered. We're pleased to confirm that active development for the next entry in the series is underway. That to me just reads as they literally just put the statement out so that people would stop asking them if they're making the next Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, that seems like them. It is to be clear, this next entry is going to be the trilogy remastered a second time, but worse.
Oh no.
Because this also stinks of like, okay, we just released the remastered trilogy. It's a complete disaster. Let's
Or
get
in
the
the
fact
words
that
of them,
we're
there was one bug that was fixed.
exactly. So like, let's get the fact that we're working on a new GTA game just out the door. Let's just tell people that we're working on it so they'll get excited again for something. Because this is Rockstar. This is Grand Theft Auto. You want to save these kind of announcements for like a big E3 show or something to get people hyped out of their minds.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's just this like wet fart of a like a tweet is just bizarre to me. It's so strange.
Meanwhile, Red Dead Online is drowning in the shallow end of the pool.
Yep.
Yeah, it's very strange how it felt so like matter of fact.
It's interesting because I think Rockstar is confidently in the position where they don't actually need to release a game very often to be sustainable. So, I'd take the time, make it good.
I guess they're confident in that too after the cancellation of Bully.
I mean, you know me, I'm very much in favor of like taking the time, but also it's like if you want to get people excited, like they didn't really talk about Red Dead 2 that much until they revealed it, and that was actually pretty close to launch.
Yeah,
from what I remember as well. Like that was a good way of doing it. You have
they waited until they had gameplay footage.
Yeah, you show off your trailer, you talk about gameplay a little bit, and then you release it. Here it's like, okay, new GTA game. We're gonna just say that we're working on it in a tweet and call it a day. And again, I think that's because they want to get some good publicity. They want to get some like positivity back in their.
They're not treating this as their actual reveal. They're just being like,
no.
Please stop asking us about it.
Please stop asking us about it, and please forget about the remastered trilogy and like us.
Yeah,
again, please.
Absolutely. All right. Well, you know what else we love on this show? NFTs.
No.
And this has been the past 2 weeks have been interesting for NFTs because multiple people.
Should we just have like a dedicated segment now for NFT stuff? To be
Look,
honest, it feels like that's what we gotta start doing.
Get it.
So I want to take a moment here just to like actually describe what an NFT is for people that don't know. It's a non-fungible token, bunch of nonsense words. All it means is you are buying a receipt. That is what you're buying. You're buying a receipt that says, I bought this thing. It doesn't prevent someone else from buying the thing. It doesn't...
Right-clicking.
It does prevent them from buying it, but it doesn't prevent them from, right-clicking and saving it as something. It's just a useless thing. The weird thing is that everything that you can do with an NFT is stuff that we've already been able to do in the games industry for a very long time, right? Like, the idea of having skins that have a unique serial tag on them, we can already do that. That's a thing that is possible to do with current technology without buying into this crazy blockchain
but
NFT
this time, it's more
stuff.
Environmentally harmful.
Yeah,
How does that sound for a pitch?
It's so confusing to me as to why this is the thing that so many of these like CEOs have latched on to as what they're pushing. Because I don't know.
But Ryan,
I feel like it's their obsession to try to get into something that's metaversy, which also I am not for at all.
Yeah, but Ryan, you can either hate or you can create.
Yep.
God damn, Wyatt.
Yep. So they're dumb. NFTs, I do think, from the standpoint of technology as a wider thing, could have some practical use at some point. We just haven't, I don't think, have not seen that yet. So, I'm not going to write off the technology, but for gaming use right now, every usage that we've seen has just been dumb.
They do have a practical use outside of the games industry. Money laundering.
Yeah, great. So happy we can use them for that.
Listen, I feel like all of our opinions and perspectives on this is going to change when Peter Molyneux comes out with his masterpiece NFT-based video game.
I'm going to find...
You say that as if it's a joke, but I totally can see that happening tomorrow. Peter Molyneux announces that Fable 3 is fully made of NFTs, or Fable 4.
I mean,
oh my god, no!
Tony Hawk does NFTs now. No one is.
I don't think he's doing them for very long. I feel like Tony Hawk. I haven't followed up on that, but I think he's going to denounce that immediately.
God, I hope so. I hope he pulls a Troy.
So, the reason I bring NFTs up again is a couple months ago, EA's CEO Andrew Wilson said that NFTs are the future of the games industry, and it's something that EA was going to currently work on. Now,
You should be scared.
he's announced that Team 17, the Worm Studio, is backing off of NFTs. Troy Baker has decided to not work on NFTs. Andrew Wilson has just announced NFTs. So, all of the big
Konami
NFT projects that just have... Oh, Konami is still being Konami. Don't give them any credit. Everyone else is just backing off because it's a silly technology. It's not useful in the way that people... I feel like what's happening is that executives are looking at NFTs as like, okay, it's a buzzword that'll make us money. Except it's an anti-buzzword. As soon as consumers see NFT, they don't want to buy the thing, right?
It is really interesting because I feel like it's getting a very it's being from a public perspective, it's being treated very similarly to like loot boxes, but the turnaround on us being like we're not okay with this was so much faster.
Well, it's because NFTs really encourage the like CS:GO gambling with skins mindset that I think is so close to like. I honestly think that like if NFTs got crazy popular and they went the route of okay, you can resell these at crazy prices, regulation is going to drop on the games industry like a hammer, and things are going to get real bad, right? It's
Which also the idea that you can use them in between games is absolute
I mean, we have that already. We have amiibos, but when I buy an amiibo, I get a cool little figure, and it's like $10, and I put it on my shelf, and I have a nice little display figure, and I can tap it in Smash Bros to play against it. Yeah. So that's cool.
In between games that are like from different publishers.
Yeah. So if I have my Star Fox amiibo, I can use it in that, and I can use it in Starlink Battle for Atlas. You know,
so much more goes into that. Studios can use different scaling based on the engine that they're going to do. You know, things handle models differently.
I also remember the Switch Skyrim port where like if you I think if you had like a Link
amiibo, you can tap your Link amiibo to get a Master Sword and Shield
and like the little tunic and everything. Yeah.
With that amiibo, though, it's actively a different model. It's not the one.
Yeah, but that's what I want, because it looks like it belongs in the game that it's in, rather than just being some weird 3D model that I've ripped off of some NFT site.
You can use it to decorate your home.
Like, I think developers are thinking... Not developers, I don't think any developers think this, but I think a lot of executives look at this as like, okay, we can use an NFT and it's going to save us tons of money, because we can like transfer this thing between different projects. No, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
Right.
That's not going to do anything at all. So yeah, I think every usage we've seen so far of NFTs is very silly and a waste of time and money. So maybe we'll see something at some point that's interesting, but as of right now, I think every usage that has been proposed is, first of all, something that could just be done normally, right? Because like, you can already do numbered skins and whatnot with CSGO. CSGO's been doing that for years. They have the technology, you know? There's ways to do it that is not an NFT. So I'm just curious as to like why people latched onto it so hard. At least it's become free publicity for studios to say we're not using NFTs, and then they get a couple of upvotes on Twitter. So,
a silver lining.
Glass half full. Yeah.
Yep. It's just a very interesting state of the world. In more positive news,
please.
It's been 12 years. 12 years since Skate 3 launched. EA has stated that Skate 4 is launching soon.
You know, there's been so much talk about Grand Theft Auto players waiting for the 6th installment in the series. Elder Scrolls fans waiting for the 6th installment of the series. Skate fans, they're the real people who are suffering.
Absolutely. I'm cautiously optimistic for Skate 4 because a lot of the team behind it does look very good at what they're doing, but we've seen nothing. Like, actually nothing. So, I don't know. This could totally be a Jedi Fallen Order situation where we're just not going to see anything until like a couple of months before it releases and is really good. It's totally what could happen here, but it's odd that we've gotten like a radio silence since then, and then suddenly it's close to launch and we haven't seen anything. I wonder if EA's waiting for another big event to show it off.
Are there any? Because my calendar skills are awful. Are there any gaming publicity events in the near future?
Gamescom might be coming up, but probably not, actually. Yeah, Gamescom's not until the summer, so I think there's not really any major industry events. Although for launching soon, I could see E3 kind of counting for that. If it's in July, August. It's just a good 4 or 5 months away, so we've got time. We'll see. In other positive news, though, Pokemon has released the music and sound effects from Diamond and Pearl for free.
Not as NFTs?
Not as NFTs. You just go in and you can download them. And they're free for personal use. And so the confusing thing here, Pokemon Company is traditionally a very DMCA happy company.
So I will still get a copyright strike if I use
Well, we don't know. So these are supposedly for use in personal videos and music. So like if you're not monetizing a video, you're free to use it. But there's also been some weird reports coming in that they mean this to be that you can monetize videos they're on. You just can't like use these to create a professional movie or something, right? So I do wonder like where the line is with this because it's a little confusing. But I don't know. It's a neat thing that you can at least download these and have high quality Pokemon assets to use in videos. It's very nice. Yeah. If you're creating music, I think that could be great for some Spotify tracks or SoundCloud tracks. Come with some new Pokemon
rapper,
remixes.
But it's exclusively Palkia's Roar.
Be pretty great. Supposedly, the Witcher Gwent games are getting another entry this year.
Really?
We had Thronebreaker, and it's supposedly there's heavy rumors from IGN that we are going to be getting a new single-player standalone Gwent game.
Cool.
It's very interesting. I liked Thronebreaker, so I'm curious to see what this is if it releases.
I like Gwent as a concept. I wish I was good enough to beat the tutorial on easy. I am not.
Oh, poor boy.
The Witcher 3, I've never ever been able to wrap my brain.
Well, we are very different people. Gwent was my favorite part of that game.
Oh, I love it.
It was for a lot of
play it.
All right. Our last interesting bit of news is that Wordle has been bought by the New York Times. So for people who don't know Wordle is a phone, kind of like a crossword. It's a little bit hard to describe if you haven't played a lot of it, but it's a game that is a little bit like doing a crossword, right? It's that same idea of you have a little puzzle you do once a day on your phone. So
Words with Friends type deal?
No, it's not Words with Friends. It's like a solo puzzle thing. I think I haven't done Wordle in ages, so I can't tell you exactly how it works, but I believe you have like it's like Hangman in some sense, where you have to like fill in the letters based on what you try out. And there's like a bunch of time limits to it to give some neat little bits of, endorphin rush. So it's interesting. It was bought out by New York Times. I don't know what this is going to lead to. The big prevailing thought right now seems to be that it's probably going to stop being free. Which
next up, New York Times buys EA. They're trying to get into the gaming business.
That would be amazing. That's an acquisition I can get behind. So yeah, it's a neat little bit of interesting information for people who play Wordle. All right, it's time to go. We're off of the news section. It's time to go into our personal picks, games that we've been playing this past week or two. No one's excited. Wow, it's complete lack of any excitement.
I'm sorry, I thought there was something else coming.
And I stayed up until 6 a.m. because I'm an idiot. So I'm very
wonderful.
tired.
Why would you do that, Wyatt?
Listen. Moving on.
All right. Well, speaking of staying up very late, Dying Light 2 is a game that came out very recent. At least Wyatt and I have been enjoying the first few hours of it.
How many hours do you have at this point? Right?
I have more listed in Steam than I've actually played. I think it lists me as having played like 8. I think I've actually played close to like 5-ish.
Okay. Steam says I've played 12 hours, which feels like a lot. So
Yeah, I've been gotten into the habit of just leaving my computer open with a game open occasionally, so my hours are all
that a
off
couple
now.
times.
Don't let this turn into Halo hours, Wyatt. Don't play for days.
I will say, so far, my impressions of the game are very positive. I do think my biggest issue, and I think the issue that a lot of new players are going to have, is the tutorial is very long. The opening bit of the game takes an extremely long time to let you loose.
Which
and I still haven't been fully let loose, so...
The problem I had with Monster Hunter World, so...
Which, to be honest, I was completely fine with. Because I really liked the area that they start you in, kind of like that foresty,
it's very cool.
Mountainous area. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to get, like... Because what was nice about it, too, is that it was linear. Like, it wasn't an open world section, but it was very large. It was very, it's like a straight path, but it's a very wide path. You know what I mean? There's a lot of different routes you can take. It's like, okay, you can either kind of scrape around in the buildings a little bit and look for some stuff and then head up the trail, or you can like climb to the top of this like freeway and kind of walk along that way. It was really nice. And again, it was a very pretty area, and I think it's very unique from the rest of the game, both visually and from like a level design standpoint. And so I actually really enjoyed it because of that. And I'd also argue that it's much better than the opening in the first game, which, going back to replay it, was terrible, in my opinion. Like
this opening, to me, felt a lot longer, but also more engaging. I think the Dying Light 1 opening is pretty rough, but it's only, like, half the length of this one.
But it feels like it's the same length, because you're not having fun while you're doing it.
Yeah, I will say, I think most people are going to have problems with that if they played Dying Light 1 already and are familiar with what you're going to get access to. And so you're kind of in the position of, okay, I just want to hit a zombie. I just want to do that. I just want to hit a zombie. That's where I was at. I was like, okay, this is Dying Light. I want to hit a zombie real bad.
And they
didn't let me do it for like half an hour.
Which I think speaks to another like aspect of the game, in that they're focusing a lot. They're putting a lot more eggs in their narrative basket this time around.
We'll see how that turns out.
I gotta say, impressions of characters and the story thus far are not amazing.
So far, every character I've met, I think, is very one note.
Yes,
they're not two dimensional.
Like the probably the most likable character is what's his name? Hakan? Harkon. Not a great character by any stretch of the imagination, but he's given some sort of
he's like the only character in the first like 5 hours of the game that is actually like telling you what's going on, right? Like, they drop you in this world and then okay, so Wyatt, I want to set the scene of the opening scene when you get into the city for the first time for people that haven't played this game. So you just get through this tunnel, you're trying to get in the city to go find a missing person. No spoilers here, don't worry. And you wind up getting out of the grate in the bottom, getting hit in the head with a bat, and then you're about to be hanged. After like 2 seconds. Now, that sounds bad, but for a little bit I was following it, because you do a thing where like you just got bit, so you might be infected, and people don't know, and you're doing the thing where you're doing the creepy arm motion, so you might be turning into a zombie. So I'm like, okay, I get kind of the fear here. But then you have someone yells, don't kill him with a bat or a gunshot, kill him by hanging him. And it just it gets weirdly brutal in this one moment. I was like,
are you immune to the virus if you got bit? Or is that a spoiler?
So
it works the same way as Silent One.
Here's the thing that I don't understand about how this virus works. So your main character is bitten, hence the subtitle of the game, which is Stay Human.
Yeah.
And so the way it works is if you're constantly under like infection, right? But if you are under direct sunlight or a UV light, the infection is held back. So as soon as it goes dark, a timer starts, and that's how long it takes for you to become fully infected.
And it's not just you. Like, this is clearly how it works for everyone else as well.
Yes. Although it's hinted at in the
Let's not talk about any story stuff.
Yeah. I stopped myself.
You
But,
do, if you sleep, you can see all the beds have little UV lights by them,
Okay.
so you know you're not turning. So I think the concept here is the city, everyone is infected. The idea is that like
people
almost
who aren't
everyone.
wearing the
So
bracelets,
it's not.
but
So it's like a it's in the water thing. The Walking Dead's
Yeah, it's like you
style.
can't
We're all
avoid
already
getting infected, right? You just need to avoid being out in the dark long enough to actually turn. So, is the just the sense that I'm getting from the first few hours, because they make this big deal of like, yeah, everyone here has had encounters and most people are infected. Everyone has to wear a little marker that is like lit up green when you're okay, and if you're about to turn, so it's blinking red. So
which I will say, in terms of the very, very tired, like zombie game genre, is a pretty interesting idea.
yeah, it's
Where
neat.
everyone's infected. It's all about trying to prevent the infection from getting worse.
The bracelet sounds like some cool diegetic UI too.
Which it's not,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
absolutely not. Yeah, you don't use it for anything.
It's a little like circle timer at the top of your screen.
But it is important that you know like the exact time so you can plan things. So I see why it's not diegetic,
I'm
but
fine with it being clear, like UI.
you can turn it off and use just the bracelet if you want to, I think. But
Is the bracelet even?
it's hard to see on your character, and I don't think it's a thing that like you can rely on.
And there's no button where you can just look at your bracelet,
think
which
so.
would be kind of cool. Which would actually be a really cool feature if you wanted to like have that sort of immersive element.
Hey, Dying Light 2, maybe a patch.
I mean, Dying Light
Maybe a
1
patch
got
in the
patches
future?
up until 3 or 4 weeks ago, so
Yeah.
Dying Light 2 is...
There's an event going on right now that's like part of a story arc or something like that.
They're
Like,
definitely
there's
going
an
to
event
have
going on right now.
long-term support for Dying Light 2.
Yes, I do want to say,
interesting.
I think like one of the biggest improvements for me is the open world design, not only from a visual and setting standpoint, because Villador is great. I for like a open world zombie city, I think it's fantastic because there's so much cool like visual world building going on, in that like no one lives on the ground. Everything that houses human beings are in either very easily defensible like churches and things like that, or they're like these really shoddy looking like structures built up on like buildings,
Like rooftop buildings covered in UV lights. It's
And
a
there's
very
a bunch
cool
of,
aesthetic.
There's a bunch of man-made like rope bridges and stuff like that. It's really cool.
The idea is that like everyone gets around on the rooftops. They don't use... I think for people that have played Dying Light 1, this feels like you start off in the second map of Dying Light 1 immediately, where there's so much verticality everywhere.
And because of the setting and how the city like looks from a visual perspective, I think it lends itself to much better like level design from a parkour perspective. I think it's way more satisfying to hop around Villador than it was in Haran, I think it's called.
Yeah, Haran.
It not only looks more interesting, but it allows for way more interesting.
They like super specifically designed every area here for parkour. Like there's so much stuff put around that is specifically like they use the language of you see little yellow lines where you can easily make a jump and stuff like that. So you've got a bit of an easy way to tell in the world what you can do.
There's great like diegetic visual aid to help you out with that, which is great.
And I think one thing a lot of people won't like, but that I really like, is that the parkour, you feel a lot less capable at the start because you don't have a ton of abilities. But as soon as you get a few things, it starts to like roll and feel just like the first game again. Then it gets more and more complicated. You get access to more things. I think makes it feel you have a really good sense of progression.
I would say the only thing that they kind of overdid in terms of like early parkour is the stamina bar.
Oh yeah.
Which the way that stamina works now is that so you have a stamina bar and it's lowered by swinging your weapon, doing like attacks and stuff, but then also climbing will just instantly, and it's not like
climbing does it more than anything else.
No, it drains it so quickly, and it's not like the way that Breath of the Wild works. So if you're climbing up something in Breath of the Wild, your stamina meter goes down, but if you stop, your stamina meter stops, so you can sit there and kind of figure out.
No.
It doesn't do that. It keeps draining even if you're just hanging there.
Oh, that's disappointing.
And it's very difficult.
It becomes much less of a problem a couple hours in, but it is like super frustrating for the first
And
45
the other
minutes or
thing
so.
is that you collect these crates, which allow you to upgrade your like max stamina, right?
They're
But
their
it's
Breath
not
of the
just
Wild
okay,
shrines.
right? But here's the problem: is that I find it very annoying where it's like, okay, it's not just one crate that you open up that like grants you. You have to get 3, and it feels like such a small thing.
Well, a
It's
lot
like,
of
no, no, I want
areas
to go
have
to
like 4
one
or 5
crate.
of them.
I know, but it's like I want to go to one crate and just have this nice big boost rather than like, okay, I got one crate. It's less satisfying, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's I'm trying to use
No,
more
I get that.
proper
Yeah, I get
vocabulary
you
here.
don't have that immediate rush of you always have gotten something progression wise when you pick one up.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say, and to that as well, there's less skill trees this time around. They've split the skill trees into, I think it's just like combat and survival, or let's say combat and agility or
Which,
something
to be
like that.
honest, to me feels fine because the middle skill tree in the original Dying Light was mostly just like passive buffs, so it wasn't very
Yeah.
interesting to begin
No,
with.
no, I'm fine with that. It feels, and I get that there's a lot of upgrades and they don't want you to get them too quickly, but like it feels
Progression is
very
slow.
grindy. It feels very grindy, and maybe that improves because I do know that there's
You do get double XP if you're out at night, so I think that's one of the big incentives to adventure at
yes,
night is you get a
and
lot more
also
experience doing that.
because now this game has like fully customizable gear with like different with like slight stat increases and stuff like that. You can get a bunch. Excuse me. You can get a bunch of gear where it increases your like agility or your
Yeah.
combat XP gains and stuff like that. And that's the other thing to point out too. This feels much more like an actual RPG.
Yeah,
Like
this is
more so than the
definitely an
first one.
RPG. This to me, it honestly felt
We
like they're bringing a lot of mechanics back from Dead Island. Oddly enough,
yes,
which I think I
yes.
really like because it
Dead
means there's a lot more
Island.
vertical progression.
Hmm.
I think it's very very fun. The weapon crafting to me feels a little bit less interesting because you're not like crafting specific weapons; you're just crafting mods that you put on weapons. But it also works pretty well so far, so I don't really I'm not complaining
As
about it. It just feels different.
as someone who typically doesn't super get into like crafting like his own gear, like Ryan and I we haven't been able to play ESO recently because of where Ryan's located, but um whenever we play that game, there's a lot of time spent where like Ryan's crafting stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to do it. Like I get too lazy. So for me, it's like, okay, I can just grab a weapon. Oh, this looks like a cool weapon.
Well, see, I don't
I'm
craft.
gonna.
I don't craft gear. I craft furniture to put in the house. Right? I don't
That's
craft the
fair.
gear stuff. That's not the fun part.
That's fair. I don't have enough space in my crummy apartment to justify that. But anyway, I'm kind of fine with it because it's like, okay, it just for me, it's more time spent making like actually using the wacky weapons than making it, and it's so streamlined, and I think the UI does a good job of
Yeah.
like helping you craft things nice and quickly, and you can still make some like just absolutely bonkers
Oh yeah, you can make some really fun
looking,
stuff.
some really like there's literally like a stick where, because there's no guns in this one, that's the other thing, there are like ranged
Uh,
weapons that you get very late in the game
They
before
actually
becoming
like
like
give you a
automatic
story reason.
rifles.
So Wyatt, I discovered a story reason in the game and a side quest, and this is one thing I do want to give major props to the game for. Is some of the side quests are really good.
Mm-hmm.
But I played this side quest where it's like a little history lesson from an old man, and he sends you to the site of a massacre and explains like
Yes, I
what
picked up that quest.
happens.
I haven't finished it, but yeah.
Yeah, so that side quest, I'm not going to tell you what happens, but he explains like why there are no guns in the city anymore. I think it's super interesting. It's a really good way of like answering these little questions about the setting that you might be
Yeah,
like, oh, why are there no guns? This is why.
dedicating entire quests to just world building, especially for fans of the first game that want to see how the world has evolved. And what is it, like 15 years since the first game, something like that?
20 or something. I think it's 20 by
20
this
years.
point.
Yeah, and so dedicating a whole side quest to just world building like that is great. Very much a fan of that. Um, the other thing I do want to say about the open world too is there's a lot more spaces where you could walk into buildings, and you can do that in the first game, but it's very limited. Here, the
It's
interiors of
built into
buildings
everything.
are way more fleshed out, and some of them are whole like almost like tiny little dungeons where you go and like look for high quality loot. And one of the best aspects of the day night cycle is that during the day You see a lot of zombies inside because they're trying to protect themselves from the sunlight, and you don't see a lot of zombies outside. But during the nighttime, all the zombies are out, which means there are less zombies in the actual building. So there are some like side content you can do that all takes place inside of buildings, and so it's best for you to wait until nighttime, so there's much less like there's much less opposition when you do
Which
that.
I think
And
is a
so
really
that's
cool like time incentive. It means that going out at night is more of an active decision here, because in Dying Light 1, like nighttime in Dying Light 1 was painful to be out in because it was so dark you couldn't see anything. And the volatiles would kind of just kill you if you weren't careful. You had to be on the
yeah.
run all the time.
It was definitely like the nighttime was definitely more intimidating in the first game, but I feel like it's more fun to play in
Yeah.
this game. I think is the
Because in the first game, you could just avoid having to play at night by never going out. And here, it feels like you have a good reason to play at night, and it's not super threatening, overly more so than day. It's more that, like, if you mess up, you might get stuck in a chase and have to, like, run around and make sure you don't get killed. But it's also less punishing, because in the first game, if you died at night, you would lose experience.
Oh,
And this one, you don't lose experience.
Oh.
You lose the bonus that you would get for getting it at night, but you don't actually lose any experience that you already got. So
It also feels like there's a lot of side content or side quests that like encourage you to go out at night too. Like it pushes you to do
yeah.
that more often as well. I feel like they're embracing the day night cycle way more in this one than they were in the first one for sure.
All right, so yeah, I think Wyatt and I generally first impressions are pretty positive.
Mhm.
We'll see how that changes as we go on. As of now, it's a fun game. I think if you enjoyed the first game, you'll probably enjoy the second. There's a lot of
We
people
didn't talk about combat
complaining.
very much.
Look, the combat physics are different than the first game. That doesn't mean they're worse.
It gets floaty sometimes. It gets kind of floaty and old janky.
They have like some new
At least in my
systems in
experience.
for parkour combat, which is really cool, but it's a little bit like finicky to get working occasionally. So
Yeah.
overall, I think currently like the combat in the second more than the first one, but I can see why people would prefer the first game. So
Just adding a block and parry button
yeah,
makes all the
huge
difference in the
difference.
world to me, for sure.
All right, so Alex, you've been playing Uncharted, haven't you?
I have. I finally finished my absolutely, definitely no longer speed through or a speed run of the entire series,
Oh, nice.
minus
Wow.
the PS Vita.
I need to
game.
resume my like regular run through. So I finished the first game and then never went to the second one.
I started by doing. I did speed runs, and I was not able to get the speed run triumphs for any of the games, but I tried. I did speed runs up until I tried to commit to it for 1, 3, and 4. I don't know why I didn't for 2. That was a while back. Um, and then I was just enjoying Legacy again because I haven't played it in a while, and I am an absolute sucker for train scenes. I guess that's why I didn't do it for 2.
I mean, a good train scene is
Love my train
always
levels.
important.
That's because they do it so well.
They
And
really do.
I think you had talked about this, Alex, on a previous episode, but just the way that they utilize the train, especially
Yeah.
in the second, is just ingenious and
Oh my god.
so well done.
There's a tank. You fight a helicopter on train. It's what it's
It's one of
good
my
stuff.
favorite set pieces for sure. I don't think anything can top Uncharted 4 when you're like tailing behind the jeeps.
Oh yes, the convoys are also done pretty well, except for
Yeah.
I didn't really like the convoys in 3. Um,
They were okay. They didn't feel like they had changed that much from the second game, which I guess they didn't really need to. But
4 was phenomenal with the grappling hook.
oh man,
I can't wait till I get to 4. 4 looks very, very fun to play.
that was some good stuff.
Yeah, and they're doing the remastered for 4 and Lost Legacy for the PS5.
I am curious, Alex. So you were playing Lost Legacy, right?
Yes.
How well has Lost Legacy held up?
In terms of anything in particular, or
Because it's one of the not the old disc games, but it's older than 4. So
no, Lost Legacy is newer than 4.
Oh, Lost Legacy's new.
It came,
I'm thinking of
yeah, it
the
came out
Golden
after.
Abyss. I'm thinking of Golden Abyss, not Lost
Yeah,
Legacy.
that's the one that I haven't played because
I have played that one actually because
Oh.
I owned a Vita back in the day, and that was like the first Vita game I ever played. It's the first Uncharted game I ever played.
Huh. How do you think it was compared to now?
Well, God, it's been a really long time since I played it.
It's definitely probably worse than the other games, but still pretty good.
Yeah.
I preferred it
what
to
I
the first one
remember.
because I
Oh.
hate the first game with a passion.
It's-
I really don't like it. But no, I liked it. The set pieces weren't allowed to be quite as insane. Not like falling out of a giant, you know, falling out of a giant plane with like the cargo crates from 3 and stuff like that. But
Mhm.
it was, but I mean, it was still a lot of fun. It just felt very much like we did what we could with the available hardware, but
There were
I think as like a
limitations.
first run because it's disconnected from the trilogy. I think it's still a lot of fun and good for beginners.
But to answer your question, I'd say to answer your question, Ryan, I'd say Lost Legacy holds up very well for being one of the newest games in the series.
I don't know how I
Yeah.
missed that Lost Legacy was newer than the 4.
Yeah, no, I replayed it recently because I was doing a class that had me play it for an assignment. Actually, it was really good. It was excellent, and like the open-ended environments that they expanded on for were really well done.
Yeah.
As well.
How long did Lost Legacy take you? You think was it how lengthy compared to the normal Uncharted games?
It's 10 hours, I'd say, if
Mhm.
you're stretching things out and doing completionist things. I think around 10 to 15.
So a good length, not like crazy long. It's nice.
No, because it's important to keep in mind that like the open like world aspect of it is one chapter, whereas everything
Yeah.
else is
Yeah.
pretty like typical linear
Yeah.
Uncharted.
There's the scavenger hunt bits in the open world were fun, especially now that you have a that you have an area map for that
Mhm.
bit. That helps. And then I
Mhm.
was doing the treasure hunt. I missed 2 of them.
Oh.
I don't know where they are. One of them is in the
That's
open
rough.
world.
All right,
That's unfortunate.
Where is it?
gotta go on a hunt at some point. Replay every mission and just scour every inch of every level.
Yep.
Okay, so anything else you want to mention about Lost Legacy, Alex?
It flushes out both Nadine and Chloe after them being essentially side pieces or one-off villains in the games before. And
Do you think they
It's
stand on their
good
own
writing.
as well as like the other Naughty Dog protagonists do?
I don't think they.
I've asked you a
that's
very
good
difficult question. I know.
question. I think their limited time in previous games helped a little bit because it adds to the satisfaction of seeing them flushed out more.
Because you already kind of have an introduction to them.
Yeah. So without them, I'd probably say they're a little bit underneath. They also bring back a couple characters from 4, technically.
Yeah, they do. I think the problem is that the protagonists from the from the previous 4 games have had like 2 to 4 games worth of like character development.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a fair comparison.
Excluding 1.
No, but I think plucking these 2 side characters, like what they were able to do with that, just plucking them out of that and then making them the main characters, I think they did the best job that they could with one game working with side characters.
With the not very likely but possibility of having more Uncharted games in the future, which they left it open because of I might at the end it's like I might try out this treasure hunting racket.
Yeah, it just probably won't be Nathan at the helm of the Uncharted games anymore.
No, I don't think so. But it could be more Chloe and Nadine, which I would absolutely be down for.
Anytime we
interesting
can
to
get
see.
more Sully. That's just as long as you can get Sully in there somewhere.
Yeah, I want like 90-year-old Sully. The games.
That
just super
that
senile.
voice is
How about a super, super young Sully that looks like Mark Wahlberg?
Oh, don't even get me started.
Oh no. So I was gonna say Last of Us 2. There have been some interestingly handled deaths.
Because
I
I
would say.
wonder, I think Last of Us is a hard franchise to keep going with.
Mhm.
Just because, like, every time they do it, you have to come up with a completely new plot, right? You can't.
Yeah.
There's no follow-up point for any of the Last of Us games, really. So I think Uncharted has a much more direct path to, like, okay, treasure hunting, let's go.
It's
right.
MacGuffin, maniacal villain, and fist fighting and beating the crap out of a terrorist.
And unlike Last of Us 1 and 2, they're more like separate adventures. Like you can play 2 without playing 1, you can play 3 without playing 1 and 2, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which works better for this kind of story, these kind of characters.
In the storytelling between from 1 to 4, I'd say it definitely helps that you could play them on their own, because they do a decent job of filling in at least relationship dynamics if you haven't played the other games, which is nice to see.
All right, so I got one game I want to talk to you two about, and I don't know if you have heard of this game because it's a more recent thing that has popped up. It's a little game called Vampire Survivors. All right,
I have not.
I haven't.
Okay, so I encourage you to look up this game and look at what it looks like, because it looks like the worst asset flip kind of trash that you would find under a dumpster bin somewhere. It's really good. So
Survivors, you said?
Vampire Survivors. This game has taken over like YouTube and Twitch recently. It's based off of like there's a phone game called Magic Survival or something like that. That is essentially a one joystick game. You don't press any buttons. You just move. And what happens is you collect upgrades and kind of idle style get incremental things that will add projectiles to your character that shoot them out in different directions and whatnot. But Vampire Survivor's whole shtick is it's very Castlevania inspired. So you get all these crazy weapons straight from Castlevania, and you use them in this giant combo to like unleash destruction on everything. It's very satisfying in a way that I think few things like that are, and it's only $3. That's the big selling point with this game. It's very cheap.
That truly is a horde of enemies.
There's a bunch of unlockable characters. It is
a lot going on screen right
it's
now.
It's a roguelite that is like distilled to the element of you just move around and then pick your character's build and get to see what happens. And it's a system that I think nobody thought would work this well, but someone just came up with it and it's working extremely well.
What was one of those taglines in there? Be the bullet in hell?
It's pretty crazy.
If I can borrow a term from Girlfriend Reviews, this is very much diarrhea Christmas lights.
Oh, but it's the best kind. It is currently in early access. I think I'm looking forward to see how crazy this game gets, because it's the kind of thing where I would love to see like different levels with completely different move sets and whatnot. So I'm excited to see where this goes, but it's a weird, just kind of time waster game that popped up that I think is way more fun than it has any right to be. And I know multiple people who all of us here know that has played it for over 20 hours.
Oh.
And it's a game where you just move around.
It reminds me of the kind of thing where, like, when we were still when we were still in college, like everyone would be working on their own like personal side project, and there'd be these like small, like but really addicting little like arcade games or whatever.
Yeah,
this feels like one of those where it's like, yeah, I've been working on this like an hour here and an hour there. Senior year, it's like finally in like a pretty playable state, and like this is the result, and it's really fun.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing with it is it's so simple to control that I think the controls are not what sell it. What sells it is the meta progression and like the crazy levels that the on-screen mayhem can get to. So
it's very satisfying, just like watching gameplay of it.
It's the kind of thing where like I watched a video of someone playing this. I was like, this looks incredibly dumb. I don't think I'm gonna like this. But then I was like, I had that tingle in the back of my head. The same thing that happened when I played Monster Hunter for the first time. I was like, oh no, something there is working.
The dopamine receptors.
Yeah, and so I went and downloaded Magic Survivors, which is the like free phone app version, which is really good. I've been playing that one on my phone. Benefit of it being free, but The Vampire Survivors is actually like a take on that has added a lot of actual gameplay elements. Like the chests are very cool with the like slot machine thing going by. So I think it's just a neat little project that a couple of these like $3 games have popped up recently. Of like Snake RX is another one that was just a super well made, very simple game of like an auto battler where you move a snake around and it shoots at enemies. So I think a couple of these have gotten very popular recently. So it's neat to see more coming out that are actually high quality.
How would you pronounce the developer's name, Ryan?
Let me check what the developer's name is first. Probably Ponkle.
I was going to say Ponsel.
Probably Ponkle. I like good old Ponkle.
Well, I think you're both wrong. It's actually Ponclee.
Could be. All right. So I think with that, we've finished our show for this week. It's time to go to shoutouts. Who wants to start?
Oh, I got one.
Go for it.
My shout out is another bit of news, actually. So as we all know, Battlefield 2042 not had the greatest launch in the world,
Uh-oh.
to put it lightly. It's been so bad, in fact, that they don't have a scoreboard. They don't have like a traditional FPS scoreboard.
Oh no.
And this was one thing that was supposed to be in an upcoming update. DICE just delayed their scoreboard update.
Oh my god!
They delayed their scoreboard for their first-person shooter. Oh my god! Oh my god! That's so funny. That's so funny.
That's pretty great.
Wow.
Oh no.
That's some high quality stuff right there.
That's some high class comedy right there.
Wow.
High class insanity. All right.
Man.
I got to give my shout out to another little indie game that I've had in my backlog for a long time called Chronicon, where it's an ARPG like all the other ARPGs, except it's very low budget, but it has like the best progression of any ARPG. It's crazy. It's a very, very good game that looks like it's not very good. I play a lot of those. Like
Weird.
Chronicon is one of the more fun action RPGs that I've played in a long time. All right, Alex.
Shout out to my new microphone that I have not used yet for the podcast for some reason, but I believe some of you have heard my voice on.
Gotta plug that bad boy in.
Are you using it right now?
I really do. I am not. I'm still using the wired headphones that I keep tripping on the wire from.
Excellent.
because the wireless headphones that I have that are really nice. I still need to switch out the earmuffs because they make my ears cramp a little bit. And the battery life is very short on them, like 2 hours long.
All right. Well, with that, we're hitting our show's battery life. So I'm going to hit the outro button. And as always, catch us Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. Eastern Time on the podcast platform of your choice, YouTube and Twitch. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Please, games industry, don't explode in the next 7 days. That would be great.
3, 2, 1, and the new news.
Sony acquires God knows what.